Chap and I welcome you to Bookstore One, Sarasota. It's a lovely day in February, so let's go on. Oh, The Nightingale, 10-year anniversary, a special edition. Look at the wonderful binding. I love this story, and truly, Kristen Hanna became very famous from The Nightingale, set in the Second World War. You know, when I grew up, it was all about Robert Frost. That he was the poet that we knew, and I remember seeing him at President Kennedy's inauguration. And this is a great story, the life of Robert Frost, Love and Need. So you get an in-depth study of how he wrote poetry and why he did. So I recommend this book to you. Well, in December, it will be 250 years that Jane Austen of her birth. And this is a book that's come out, Jane Austen's Bookshelf, a book collector's quest to find the women writers who shaped a legend. And I recommend it, so you'll all have a great year of studying about Jane. Oh, this is a very famous book. It's called Marshmallow. And Marshmallow was actually written in 1943. And it's the story, obviously, about Marshmallow and a baby rabbit and Oliver, who is a tabby cat, and how they become friends. So I recommend Marshmallow, and it won the Newbery Prize. You know, we have the greatest graphic novels, and I know that Andrea, my colleague here, is a great fan, but this one I was touched by. We have a great collection, by the way. William Morris, the story of his life. He was lived in the 19th century, and a lot of the wallpapers that when I grew up in Massachusetts were copies of his work. So I encourage you to read any graphic novel, and I thought of this too for people who might not be able to read a lot, because the pictures are just beautiful and they can understand them. Well, Geraldine Brooks is an incredible woman, and we know her from The Horse, but famously, this is a story about, a very poignant story about Memorial Days. It's titled, Her Husband Died on Memorial Day, Anthony Horowitz, and Tony Horowitz. And he was just a remarkable person, and it's her quest to find her way after that. And I think of her fondly because she's from Martha's Vineyard, which is not far from where I grew up. You know, Angela Merkel, I've always followed her career, which is amazing, and this book was translated into English recently and tells her story. It's well done. I recommend Freedom. Marie Benedict, she's done many books, and her new one is The Queen's Crime, and it's a delight, and she's writing the 5 greatest women writers of the golden age of mystery. I always go for Europa editions, and we have lots of them on the shelves. And when you see them, this is the Tokyo Suite, and it's a mystery story. So when you see this little emblem here, you should know that to pick it up, because it's a great translation. Last Twilight in Paris by Pam Genoff. She's a great writer. It's set in the 1950s and is a throwback to some things going on in Nazi Germany. I was dusting the other day. I'm famous for being the swifter of the store, and I came across this poetry book, World by Ana Luisa Amaral, translated by Margaret Joel Costa. My background is Portuguese, so I'm fascinated by anything when we have it on the shelves. I recommend it. And Margaret Joel Costa is the finest translator of anything Portuguese into English. Peggy Noonan has written forever with the Wall Street Journal, but prior to that, she also worked in the White House, so here are some of her essays. And I think
Okay.
Great.
Hi there, I'm Andrea. It's the middle of the season at Bookstore One, and we're going to talk about more books. So, first off, 600 people in Sarasota were lucky enough to see Ann Patchett for the Library Foundation luncheon. She was absolutely amazing. And before that, I reread one of her essays in These Precious Days, which is a fascinating, it's a really interesting and fun essay. It's about Ann Patchett's friendship with Tom Hanks' assistant. Tom Hanks' assistant, she meets her because Tom Hanks narrated the audio edition of Dutch House. And the woman comes to Nashville. Tom Hanks is married to Rita Coolidge, who is a musician and spends time in Nashville. Anyway, the woman has some health problems and ends up coming to Nashville and staying with Ann Patchett. And it's a lovely story of friendship and overcoming obstacles. So These Precious Days also, it's just a great book of essays. There's another one in here I read called My Three Fathers. That's really good. So she writes more than fiction, and I'd recommend These Precious Days. And then, because my mother had recently read this and recommended it, and because it's Ann Patchett, this is her very first novel, The Patron Saint of Liars. And I just read this, and it's a magnificent debut novel. I mean, I say it reads a little bit like a debut, but it's engrossing. It's about a home for unwed mothers. A woman goes there, and then how her life changes. The Patron Saint of Liars, lying is certainly, I like books about people who lie. And so it's one of those. And it's it's focused on the woman who gets pregnant, the young woman, a gentleman, and then her daughter. So this is Ann Patchett's debut, The Patron Saint of Liars. And then, because I was thinking about my mother, I read this recently. It's a new novel. It was a paperback original called Blue Light Hours. I read about it online. And it's a debut novel from a National Book Award winning translator, Bruna Dantas Lobato, and she's Brazilian. And the book is a story of a young woman who leaves Brazil to go to college in Vermont, and then stays in touch with her mother over Skype while she's there. And the book is mostly, the young woman falls in love with Vermont and falls in love with being in the United States, but the book is mostly the conversations between her and her mother on Skype, and it's fascinating. And when I read this, my mom had an accident and broke her hip, and I was talking to her every day. So this really spoke to me when I read it. It's a really good mother-daughter story, Blue Light Hours. Then this just came out last week. It sounds really interesting, and I'm not good at pronouncing French, but it's called Live Fast, and it's by Brigitte Giraud, and it's the winner of, I think it won last year, the Prix Goncourt Award, which is like the French National Book Award. And it's a autobiographical fiction, a story about a woman who is looking back. Her husband was killed in a motorcycle accident, and he liked to live fast. And anyway, it sounds really interesting. This one I haven't read, but it's on my list to pick up. Next, we know I like foodie books, and this one, I love the cover and I love foodie books. So this is How to Share an Egg, a true story of hunger, love, and plenty by Bonnie Reichert, I don't know, Reichert. Anyway, Bonnie is a chef, and she goes and she is a journalist and a chef and a writer. She takes a trip to Poland, and she kind of immerses herself in Polish cuisine through the eyes of her family who were in the Holocaust and were in concentration camps. So it's an interesting look at food and memory and family. It's gotten great reviews. Ruth Reichel, who's one of my idols, blurbed the back. So that's How to Share an Egg. And then while I was still feeling parental, my dad loved limericks. My dad wrote limericks. He just loved limericks. So when I saw the complete nonsense books of Edward Lear, I had to pick it up and look. And I mean, it is absolutely full of limericks. You can't get any better. So I'm just going to read you a really quick one. There was an old person of Nice whose associates were usually geese. They walked out together in all sorts of weather. That affable person of Nice. And there he is, the person who looks like a goose. Anyway, if you love limericks and you love funny little poems, and really if you have kids and you like to read poems to your kids, this would be a great book. My dad read me poetry when I was a kid, that kind of stuff. I have just a few more things. You know, I'm doing this all personally today. My husband is gluten-free right now, so I have like cravings for pizza. So the Elements of Pizza is a new cookbook we got, and if you want to learn how to make pizza, you can do things like this. It looks grand, and who doesn't love pizza? So this is our new book. It's by, oh, and this is by Ken Forkish, who actually has a beautiful bakery and pizza shop in Portland, Oregon. So. And then I have a couple of things for young people for Black History Month, which is February. And this is a new book that just came out in January. It's a collection of poems for teens called Poemhood. And it looks great, and I would recommend that for young people. And then this I saw on the shelf the other day. It's also new. And it's a Ibram X. Kendi did a adaptation of Zora Neale Hurston's folk tale, Magnolia Flower, and it looks lovely, and the tale is about indigenous people, and it has beautiful illustrations, and it reimagines this great story. So anyway, that's it for this week. Come and see us at 111 South Pineapple. This is Bookstore 1, Sarasota. Thanks for watching.